some good news. I was able to convert my entire sheet so that I got rid of all of the paid data sources that I was using and just used ESPN projections. Obviously, I like the paid ones a little bit better. I think they're a little bit more accurate than ESPN, but I just wanted to make this sheet available for everyone to use. And I really couldn't do that without getting sued from using the paid sources. So I just want to show you what I did, and then I want to kind of walk you through how I use it in a quick tutorial. So here's all the ESPN's data, as well as the ID that I've created for them all. You can see previous videos that I've made to understand what the purpose is of that behind actually making this sheet. So what I did is I brought in all of ESPN's data, and then I actually set it up so that the fantasy points in column Q are connected to however you set up your scoring. I didn't set up a defensive scoring. I'm not really sure if that's necessary. I think a lot of people use the same scoring systems, and I'm not super familiar with the variants that occur with changing defensive projections, so I just kind of have them how they are, and I just left them at that. But anyway, so we have points per yard. So for quarterbacks, if they are 0.05, that equates to 20 yards, gets them 1 point. So it's however your league is set up. Mine is every 25 yards, which equates to 0.04. Then for passing touchdowns, I play in a 6-point per passing touchdown league. I know a lot of people do 4-point. So if you wanted to change that, we can just look right now. So Tom Brady right over here is currently projected from ESPN at 394.9. If we convert this passing touchdowns into 4 instead of 6, you can see that it changes his projection down to 328.7. This obviously affects certain quarterbacks more than others. For example, I think Cam Newton, because he's a rushing quarterback. So him getting more rushing touchdowns is going to elevate his score in a 4-point passing league, because he's getting a lot more 6s versus the other quarterbacks mostly just getting 4s for their touchdowns. So anyway, I'm just going to switch that back to what I use. Then obviously interceptions, I have it either 1 or 2. I think that's what the majority. Points per completion, I don't do that in my league at all, but I know that some leagues do, so I wanted to make that available. Then we have rushing scoring setup, points per yard, rushing touchdowns, fumbles. Again, that's probably the only one that's really going to change at all. And then points per rush. I know some leagues have carries and rush attempts, and you get points for that. Mine does not, so I'm going to leave that there. And then we have the points per reception. So if you're in a league that's 1 PPR, you can change that to 1, versus if your league in standard, you can change it to 0. I don't really think there's much in between, unless like you're in Scott Fishbowl or something weird like that. So as you can see, let's look at Le'Veon is right here at 313. So if we change it from 0.5 down to 0, we're going to see his 313 drop down to 273. So as you can see, they're just all connected to the sheet. Then over here we have the cumulative ESPN team projections that we're going to be using for the team breakdown and the mock draft simulator tabs. So as you can see, I'm on Kansas City right now. You can flip through whatever team you want to go to, Arizona, wherever you want to go. And then we have the market shares that I've already covered in previous videos. And then we have projections, as well as a way to customize your own market shares and kind of mess around. I'll make a video a little bit more thorough then. Actually, we might touch on it later if we discuss any player comparisons. I sometimes like to do market shares to compare players individually. Then we have consistency tab and ADP tab. You guys don't really need to touch these tabs ever. Those are just for the mock draft simulator to import data. So as you can see, this mock draft simulator, I've already posted a video on this, so you probably have some idea of it if you've seen that. So whatever pick you're picking from, today I'm going to be picking from the 6th spot. That's where I'm picking in my league of record. As you can see, you got the neighboring picks, 4 above and 4 after, according to Fantasy Pros ADP. And then this is going to automatically change to whatever your next picks are based off whatever pick you're picking from. So my next pick would be 19, so then I can kind of get a gauge of what players might be left over when I get to my next pick. So if I'm kind of between guys, I can be like, oh, well, if I can't get him now, at least I can get this guy, etc. Down here, we got roster construction. My keeper in this league is Zach Ertz, so I already have him put in. And so what's going to happen is every time that you actually plug in a player, so say first round, I drafted we'll say Alvin Kamara right now, but he's not available in my record, my league of records, so that's not going to happen this time. But so that would automatically import all of his stats. You get a summary tab down here of all of the stats from last year and this year, and then You also have the roster construction change, so this jumped up to 1, so the need is only 3 now. You can make your target number whatever you want. I mean, some leagues have certain rules on what your max is, or it can just be a preference thing for you, just to get an idea of how your team's looking with some colors there. We have the consistency rankings, starter percentages, and then obviously all the projected stuff over here. And I didn't mention, but I mean, if you have your own paid projections, it's pretty easy to just kind of update this projection source. If you just keep the same format, so wherever you get your projections from, just make sure that it's formatted in this order, and then all you have to do is copy and paste, but you paste special instead of here. Let me just demonstrate. Let's see if I just highlight. Let's see. And so I would just paste special instead of regular paste, and then just click values and number formats. What that does when you're pasting from the other source, it doesn't screw up the table, so nothing actually changes on this table other than the information that's actually within it, and that'll prevent anything from being affected on other tabs that are using that projection source to automate the data. All right, so let's just go ahead and show you how we use this. There's also the player comparisons tool. So that's if you're ever really between two guys and you just kind of want to have it all locked up without a bunch of mess around it. You can just click through their names, put on AJ Green. It's going to show you all the stats as well as the differentials between last year's stats and this year's projections. Green is good, red is bad, etc. And then it's going to have it down here. It'll show you where what players are winning per se between those two statistical categories. And then the data validation tab, again, that's another tab that you guys don't really need to touch at all. That's kind of how I get all these drop downs to work and little weird things that I don't want just scattered on random tabs. All right, so let's go ahead and go over to Football Guys Draft Dominator, and I am drafting from the 6th spot. As I said, this is a keeper league. It's a 0.5 PPR, 6 point per touchdown league. So I'll just do a couple of rounds real quick with you just so you can get an idea of what I use this for. So we'll go ahead and hit resume draft, and it's going to bring up the picks. So Antonio Brown magically fell to me. I don't see that happening in my league, but just for the sake of it, we'll go ahead and just pretend like this is what's actually happening. So in this situation, I don't really need to compare anything. If Brown falls to me, or for me this year, especially in 0.5 PPR, it's Lev, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott are those top 3 workhorse backs that you have to have. The only other person who's even in that tier is Antonio Brown. I've had him as my keeper the last 2 years. Unfortunately, we're at a 2-year max rule, so I won't be able to keep him this year. But I love him. Incredibly consistent, such great upside every single week, and he's just every year is just so safe. And considering all the other running backs that remain, I wouldn't take any of them over him. So I'm going to go ahead and take him, and then we're going to go over to the mock draft simulator. So it said that there was a chance, so I guess it's realistic somewhat. I kind of doubt it in my league. But I'm going to go ahead and plug in Antonio Brown, so I'm just going to scroll to his name, and then I'm going to change my current pick to my next pick, which would be the 19th. And then we're going to change this one to the 3rd round pick. So I can kind of get an idea of who I might want to target this round. So I'm probably going running back, considering I just took AB and sacrificed on those early round RBs. Let's see who's still available based off this mock. All right, so we got Jerick McKinnon, Jordan Howard, Rashad Penny, Joe Mixon, Devonta Adams. I love Devonta Adams, but I feel like let's take a look real quick. So if I were to take Devonta Adams now, there's a chance Joe Mixon might fall to me. But if we're looking at this list, I mean, I would not be happy having Derrick Henry. I wouldn't mind Joe Mixon as my one. I wouldn't feel comfortable with it. I do like Jerick McKinnon. I don't really agree with these projections. I think in a Shanahan system, we've seen what he can do and how he can turn receiving running backs into superstars with such a unique offensive scheme. So I do really like McKinnon. I've always been a big supporter of 3-down backs and following the money, as the fantasy footballers say. And he has a $13 million contract, so you know they're going to be working to get him the ball, and he's in a great system. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with McKinnon. Just for the sake of it, let's go ahead and do a player comparison tool so you guys can see. So if we go to Jerick McKinnon and we compare him against Devonta Adams, they're obviously different position, so it's a little bit harder of a comparison to make, but there are certain things that you can look at Let's see, Jarek, where you at? There you go. Okay. So obviously the rushing stats are all going to go to McKinnon. Targets, I mean, these are pretty good projection target numbers here. I don't like how the touchdowns are so low. I can see him getting into the end zone more. I think just because a lot of people are kind of down on San Francisco. I think they're going to be an okay team. Their defense is going to blow, but I think their team in general will be okay. So in fantasy production, we have their total projections here, and obviously it has Davante Adams projected more, but it's not drastic, and you got to think about scarcity at the position. So like if we go back to that mock draft simulator tab and we're looking at what we might fall to us now, I mean, we have Joe Mixon maybe, and I don't know if he's going to make it back around. And then Derrick Henry, hell no, not with Deion Lewis there. I can't make that risk as my RB1. And then the round after that, we got Alex Collins, Jay Ajayi. Some of these guys might pan out, but I can't take that risk having them as my running back 1. So in this situation, I would lean towards taking McKinnon. So I'm going to go ahead and take McKinnon. I'm going to let that load. Obviously, there's some incredible keepers in this league. We got Todd Gurley, who's kept in the 2nd, Alvin Kamara in the goddamn 10th, and D-Hops in the 3rd. So I just got Ertz in the 8th. I feel okay about that, but in comparison to some of my league mates, I'm kind of screwed a little bit there. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in Jerick McKinnon here, and then we can see how our team's looking as far as construct goes. Okay. All right. So pretty balanced right now. We have the total statistics down here. Consistency ranking is a little bit high. I think that kind of factors in with McKinnon's stats last year, just because he wasn't really the starter early on, and then he had some huge weeks and some somewhat low weeks as well. So anyway, I'm okay with this. So let's see who's still available. And wow, see, that's Joe Mixon falls to us now. So that makes me kind of think a little bit disappointed, because Jordan Howard and Joe Mixon being here makes me think that taking Davante Adams could have paid off. But again, I don't mind this. Let's see wide receiver wise, just for comparison. In this situation, I'm okay having AB and just kind of focusing on RBs. At the moment, I don't see any wide receiver that really stands out to me. So what I'm going to do is go to the player comparison and do Joe Mixon with Jordan Howard. Let's just see how that looks with the tool. So here we go. Let's get Joe Mixon in here. And Jordan Howard. Where are we at? All right. So projection-wise, the overall fantasy points per game are in Joe Mixon's favor. Not by a lot, but in his favor. Again, it all depends on the projections that you're using. I think this is really useful for comparing whatever your customized projections are. I mean, don't just rely on one source as the do-all, say-all. You kind of got to either find somebody you really trust or compile a bunch of different statistics. A good example of compiling various sources is my video data consolidation. It just makes it easy to take a bunch of different sources and put them together and average them out into one data table. So go ahead and check that out if you're curious how to do that. That can speed up the process. But for me, it's all about upside. Jordan Howard being alongside of Tariq Cohen makes me think that receiving the ball, and we saw Jordan Howard, his hands are awful. I mean, I love the guy. He's an incredible runner, but his hands are bricks. And I like receivers who can catch the ball. I had Joe Mixon last year, and he's on my dynasty team. I am very hopeful and optimistic that he can have a bounce back year. Hopefully Cincinnati's team won't be so terrible, and they can actually give him a little bit of blocking, a little bit of help. And now that Jeremy Hill is out of the way, it's just Gio there, and I think Mixon is a far superior athlete and draft pedigree at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and take Joe Mixon. So we'll just go ahead and take Joe Mixon. We'll go back to the simulator, and I'll add in Mixon here. I'm just going to do one more pick with you guys just to see where the team goes from here. So let's plug in Joe Mixon. Obviously, when you're actually drafting, you won't have all this time. This is more just for mock draft purposes to kind of get a feel for things. So when you're actually drafting, you've already been through a lot of these scenarios. You've already experienced it, so you can have a better idea of what route you want to go no matter what comes your way, because someone's always going to surprise you. Someone will reach on someone, and it will screw you up a little bit. So I'm probably looking wide receiver at this moment, unless... So Marvin Jones, I mean, his touchdown he's going to have some regression with those touchdown numbers. I mean, they were absurd, but I mean, he is a very good receiver. Josh Gordon, I don't mind having him either. Sammy Watkins, very boom bust. He's got a gunslinger back at quarterback now who might actually result in some touchdowns for him. He's very inconsistent, but the rest of my team feels pretty safe to me, so I wouldn't mind taking a little gamble there. I mean, Marvin Jones, similar. He's really a big play guy. Josh Gordon, probably going to be a big play guy, but I just don't know how Cleveland's offense can. They have. It's funny to say, but Cleveland really has a lot of good talent this year, and it's hard to imagine them being able to feed all those mouths with Tyrod at quarterback or with a rookie at quarterback. Landry is such a target hog, and then you have Duke Johnson catching balls out of the backfield, Carlos Hyde. It's just, you have so many players there. I don't know how Gordon can really produce like he did years in the past. So for me, I would probably be between Marvin Jones and Sammy Watkins, maybe Darius Geis. I don't mind that at this spot. I don't think I would reach for Rodgers at this moment. 4 is a little bit too early for me. If he falls to the 5th, I would gamble on him, but I don't think I can reach that early. So I'm going to go ahead and do one last player comparison with you guys. So we'll go ahead and look at Sammy Watkins. Let's see. Or we can do Marvin Jones first. He'll be on the way more. Where you at, Marvin? Marvin Jones Jr.? All right. And then we'll go to Sammy. All right. And okay, so now we're seeing their numbers side by side, and so it looks like Marvin's targets are projected to go up a little bit, receptions go down some, touchdowns, like I said, regress some. I agree with that one for sure. And then we got Sammy. His target share and his reception percentage was just terrible. I mean, I think that has in part not a lot of chemistry built up with Goff last year, but he still caught 8 touchdowns. I mean, the dude just catches touchdowns. It's crazy. If his targets really increase like this, I could see him really having a big year, and he's such an elite talent. I would probably in this situation kind of lean Watkins just from the construction of my team. Marvin's probably a safer player, but I think it's undeniable that Sammy has more upside, especially in a young, talented, potent offense. So I'm going to go ahead and take him. And just want to see who falls back to me. Not going to go through a whole nother one. But okay. Yeah, so we still have some options here. Deshaun's still here. If I was thinking quarterback, still might be a little early for me. Marquise Goodwin, Royce Freeman might take over the starting role fairly soon. Corey Davis is supposed to be the next AB. So, I mean, I don't know why you keep everyone sleeping on him because he had a terrible first year, but a lot of rookies do. Can't expect them all to be like Kamara and Hunt. But, all right, well, yeah, I just wanted to give you guys an idea of how I use this tool. And I am going to be posting it for download very soon. I'm just taking care of a lot of little tweaks that I have to do because when I took out the projections, a lot of things were messed up because they were all referencing prior projections. So I just have to make sure everything's all smoothed out, and then I'm going to go ahead and post it and make it available for you. So I hope you guys enjoy it and get some fantasy championships this year.